Our pastors cheated with my wife, and now he is leaving town. I had been married to my first wife for around 9.5 years when I became a deputy with the local sheriff's office. I was attending the academy, so I was at home more than normal because courses were only from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. throughout the week. After completing the academy, I returned to shift work at the local jail, night shift, 12-hour shifts. 2 months later, I had a strange sensation that something wasn't right because my wife continued to spend time sewing and crafts with the pastor's wife. I was off duty and had to modify my sleep routine. I'd go to bed with my wife, but couldn't sleep. I walked to the washroom and spotted a text on her phone at midnight from the pastor. Assuming it must have been an emergency, I picked it up and read it. It said, "Good night, my darling." I was stunned and attempted to locate further texts, but she had deleted them. The previous text would have been saved if it had been innocent. I woke her up at 1 a.m. and asked her, "WTF?" She basically said it had to be a typo and asked why I was snooping. She became defensive and kicked me out of our bedroom for a month and a half. I believed I'd messed up since I was so worried out that I dropped 35 pounds in a month, couldn't eat or sleep, and was basically a basket case. Counseling was recommended to us by the pastor, so I arranged for it. She had me apologizing to him for even thinking that anything was going on between them. She refused to speak to the counselor except to quote Bible texts. She attempted to be holier than thou. I saw her diary unguarded after a month and a half of this. She had been so protective of it and her phone since it all went downhill. I read about how she and him were in love and had to sneak around to be together, despite the fact that his wife was aware. I approached her gently and said, "You were correct to hide your diary from me. I just read it." Her jaw dropped to the floor, and she apologized profusely. "I never meant it to go this far. I never meant to harm you," she added. "Call him immediately. I want to talk to him." She called, and I insisted on meeting him in the morning, which I did at a nearby fast food restaurant. I strolled in with my phone in my pocket, ready to take notes. I recorded our chat because it is legal where I live. He admitted to the inappropriate connection and how he was such a hypocrite that he regularly preached against infidelity, and how he wouldn't advise a lady alone because people would think the wrong thing. I let him speak long enough for him to provide evidence. I was furious. It was the most difficult thing I'd ever had to do. I worked even harder to keep my marriage together, but I'm fairly certain the adultery continued. I moved out to keep my job safe, so she couldn't lie and tried to develop a domestic abuse issue, causing me to lose my career. People at church had been asking her where I had been for weeks, and she had lied and said I was working. They contacted me, and I refused to lie for them. It took some time, but it all came out, and he quit the church he founded 25 years earlier and began working in fast food in his mid-50s. That took years for me to get over it, but it interfered with my confidence in others, especially preachers. I'm not posting this to be malicious. I'm just publishing it for others to read in the hopes that it will help others who are going through the same thing. The following is the second story. Let me draw you a picture. I've been married to my hubby for 19 years. He was my first relationship when I was 18 years old, and we both lost our virginities to each other. We were inseparable and served as an example of love and a healthy relationship to our friends. After years of infertility, I gave birth to our son about 5 years ago. It truly was a miracle. This is when things started to get rough. As I began my new position as my husband became the breadwinner. I had a miscarriage when my son was a year old. This was shortly after I had quit breastfeeding, and my hormones were in disarray, and depression was setting in. My husband became concerned that I was drifting away from him and began investigating. He accused me of cheating on him with all of our guy friends for the following 3 years. He then assumed I had a boyfriend. His thoughts shifted to believing I was a prostitute who entertained men while they slept. He installed hidden cameras and recording devices throughout the house in order to trap me. I felt terrible for my hubby. I encouraged him to seek therapy because his ability to think rationally appeared to be impaired. We attempted couples counseling, but the accusations persisted. The emotional torture persisted. Intimacy was tight since he was looking at me like a slut, but felt like I had to please him to help him feel better. Last year, I listened to my gut, and I did not sleep with him for about a month. My depression was at its worst, and I was starting Lexapro. At a small get-together with friends, my husband went on a walk with my best friend, the wife of his best friend. They have an open relationship, and it was overheard that she was telling my husband that humans are not meant to be monogamous. I noticed her touching his knee too comfortably, and I felt like vomiting. They planned a game night, and my husband planned to spend the night. Since the game was so long and boring, I wasn't invited. I am not stupid. My husband was too excited about this night and had really been looking forward to it. Right before he left, I asked him not to sleep with her. He seemed shocked and flabbergasted that I would even mention something so wild. I told him if I didn't say it I would regret it later. Even while I was showing apprehension, he still left. He returned the next day, and after being awkward for hours, he finally told me what happened. This almost 40-year-old tells me he hooked up with her. Using such casual language when up to this point, we had only ever had sex with each other. I have since moved out, but he is determined to win me back. I am not sure I could endure more of this toxic relationship. The next chapter is very scary. I have never dated another person in my life, but even being alone has to be better than this kind of emotional abuse. My parents want me to work it out with him. My friends are supportive of me and happy I've finally left. Healing can be lonely and scary, but I am hoping for a better future for me and my son. Here is some best comment: our husband is shitty. If you or he wanted to be in an open relationship, I don't fault you. However, he is giving ethical non-monogamy a bad rap. You explicitly told him not to, and then he did. That is the most bullshit ever. My personal thoughts are that he wanted to find out you were cheating. He may not have been cheating, but IT would give him absolution for what he did or wanted to do. I say that as someone who has done dumb shit. I looked through a now ex's phone and tried to find something to no fruit. Why? What did I want to find? The answer was absolution of guilt. We weren't having sex overly, and I am a very sexual person. I'd wanted to break up but was too much a coward and didn't want to hurt her. If she cheated, then congrats, no bad guy here, just doing the right thing. I was shitty and I know that. I don't have an excuse other than I was shit and insecure. He did the same, I wager. If you want to make it work, I won't fault you, but he has significant toxic traits. Maybe it means time apart. Or open relationship. Do what works for you. Thank you for sharing your story. It will get better. There are less shitty people out there, and also you don't need people either. You do what you need to do for you and your family. It's okay if you and your husband aren't meant for one another. You try, Ed. I don't fault that at all. I don't fault you for wanting to stay either if you did or do that. I have such a strong respect for you given how you confronted him, and he still went and did exactly that. He's shit and is the reason why people who actually practice consensual non-monogamy get a bad rap. Fuck him. You matter. Have some time apart. Grow. Become different. Get happy. Have loads of sex. Have none. Whatever you want, just try to be safe. You're still young and vibrant and deserving. Wishing you all the best. You got this. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe and get notification for our next cheating stories.